Thank you for everyone being here for the System Performance Committee monthly meeting for April 2025. I'm going to give a minute here for one of our cultural aspects to come back into the room, but I'm going to start with our theory of change. And that if we create a homelessness response system that centers the voices of people with lived experience of homelessness, then we can focus on responding to needs and eliminating inequalities to end homelessness. Let's see. I hope everybody was able to look at the agenda for today. And I sent out some information in an email to everyone. So if you didn't get it, please let me know. But that was early this morning, and that is concerning two possible new SPC members who both have agreed to join us today and to speak to their applications and for us to possibly raise up to a vote, Mustafa and Shauna. Shauna has been a part of the SPC before. Mustafa is new. And like I said, I hope that you received the email and have a little bit of information. This is the first time that we have our SPC skills assessment to be able to review with possible applicants. So that's exciting. We have progress. And for everybody that's coming in, thank you. Thank you for being here. We are waiting for Tamara with our cultural component, but if Marvin is still here, if you'd like to do the land acknowledgement, I can hand it off to you.
Thanks, Bella. In absence of my traditional one, I'm traveling today. I'm sorry, folks. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the land of the Coast Salish peoples. I'd like to highlight that we're on the lands of the Duwamish tribe. They have gone unrecognized and are not represented usually within our governmental scope of work. We seek to change that. We seek to continue to acknowledge and uplift their culture and resourcefulness as in addressing homelessness in this region. Please join us today with a moment and for recognition of the first unhoused people in King County. Thanks.
Thanks, Marvin. And we are still, thanks for those joining us. Welcome to the SPC April meeting. I do think that we're still waiting possibly for Tamara to join us. It looks like she might be having some technical problems right here. If Alex, you're around and you see the email that I just sent you. I don't have a cultural piece right now that I could just say off the top of my head. Does anybody else have a piece of their own or other cultural traditions or additions that you would like to bring into this meeting right now? I open it up with an invitation.
Hey, Bella. This is Ruby. I can offer a cultural piece if you'd like. I believe it's one that I've perhaps used already, but I think it's a good one, and I think it's important right now. This land is your land. This land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf Stream waters. This land is made for you and me.
Thanks, Ruby.
Yeah, thanks. And that's Woody Guthrie. This land is your land. Thanks.
I appreciate that. Okay, hopefully we'll see Tamara join us here pretty soon. I am going to open it up at this time for public comment. Do we have anybody waiting. Alex, if you can see, are any hands? Are there any questions? Please raise your hand or ask a question in the chat. We have public comment open at this time.
I have Tamara and the attendees with her hand up. I'm just trying to promote her to panelist. Tamara, I think you have to accept the panelist. That work? There we go.
Thank you, Alex.
Otherwise, there are no hands up or anything in the chat.
Tamara, do we have you?
Yep, I am here.
Okay, thank you. Just to let you know, Ruby did step in and offer us a cultural piece, but if there are no public comments right now and nobody opposes, I think that Tamara had something that you wanted to be able to offer as well.
Yeah, actually, and it's like it pairs perfectly with what Ruby shared because in the words of Bob Dylan, I just saw a documentary that was really good. I've never been a Bob Dylan fan, but like this resistance song, I think everybody should know. Come gather around people, and you can guess the title. Come gather around people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. It is time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a changing. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin. And there's no telling who that it's naming, for the loser now will be later to win, for the times they are a changing. Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block out the hall. For he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. The battle outside raging will soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changing. Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend your hand, for the times they are a-changing. The line, it is drawn, the curse, it is cast. The slow one now will later be last, or later be fast. As a present now will later be past, the order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changing. Resistance.
Thanks, Tamara.
Yeah.
If that's the documentary that just came out, I watched that too. And yeah, very wise words that seem to keep cycling back. And I believe I'm still in the open forum public comment. That gave us a little bit of extra time in case anybody did have any public comment to add. Anybody? I don't see anything in the chat. Okay. Well, then I will close public comment for this April meeting, and we can move on to the next agenda item, and that is board and committee updates. Would anybody present like to do any updates on behalf of the committees or groups that they are a part of?
Oh, hello. I suppose I could give a COC board up. Although trying to just rack my brain right now. Of course, I went into system performance committee mode, and now I'm trying to kind of blanking on what we did at our last meeting. But we did have a good presentation from coordinated entry, I believe. We had a great presentation from coordinated entry. We saw Tom Regan, and he gave us some, base understanding of the system and what they've been looking into and trying to change. And hopefully we can see some membership involved in that committee here soon on the coordinated entry committee. And we also had Daniel do the system performance measures to, I think it was 1 and 7, if I believe correctly, or if I remember correctly. And we also, unfortunately, had to dismiss a board member, which was not anything we wanted to do, but we are, looking towards the membership, and we're going to be looking towards having a special meeting coming up soon discussing that recruitment piece. So we're looking forward to that. And that's a quick plug. If you haven't checked your email yet and you have a doodle poll in there, please go ahead and fill that out if you're on the board. And we did skip over it. Thank you for that, Alex. We need to Bella, we need to do the roll call as well before we get into the rest of the committee updates.
I do have that ready to go. I was gonna wait until we had a natural pause.
Okay, perfect. This is the pause, right, for roll call?
Are we finished with updates? And has his hand?
I can just finish my one update and then maybe do the roll call, and then if there's any other updates, or I don't know, how do you guys want to do it, Bella?
Yeah, that sounds good since we've started, but let's at least have the COC update finished.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. I appreciate the grace there. Yeah, and then so we're going to have our next meeting on the 7th of May. And that's going to be from 2 to 4 p.m., which is always the first Wednesday of the month. So thank you guys. That's my quick update for the COC.
I just wanted to throw in, Ruby, we have the charter review is ongoing and well, and I believe we're meeting again this Friday.
Yeah, and that would be a separate committee or work group, I think, but yeah, you're right, absolutely.
Righty.
I wanted to just give an update on 2 things for the group. For those of you who were here last year and were following along, we are starting the configuration for our coordinated entry for domestic violence survivors. And we got the service agreement for that. And we're going to be moving forward. We have a nice long runway until the end of the year to get that up and to start that. So we'll be doing that carefully and in partnership with the coalition. And that will be a bona fide coordinated entry system parallel to our mainstream system, if you will. This will be very specific to those who are fleeing DV, stalking, dating violence, or any human trafficking. And then the second point, and this is not really this is more of a question. Do we have an update on the PIT work group committee, the unsheltered PIT work group, and where we're at with those steps? And I'm thinking of Ruby.
Yeah, I don't have any clear answer on that at this time. I will definitely be able to get that from Catherine or Kelsey to kind of check where the applications are at, because I think that we're not quite finished with the application round of gathering applications. We're supposed to be closing that here soon, or maybe it just recently closed, but I think yeah, so that's kind of something for discussion later on when we have all those applications in, I believe.
Okay, thank you. I'll go through roll call. How about that?
Okay.
Let's see.
Daniel, do you want me to do roll call, or you're totally good too? I've got it up right here if you want.
Oh, you've got it up. I had it up too, and then it looks like it took a nosedive on me. Oh yeah. I'll go through Tamara.
Here. And yes.
Sherry. See Sherry.
Here.
Victoria. I see you too.
Here.
Ruby.
Here.
Marvin.
Here.
Christina. Sawicki. Marcus, no. Let's see if she shows up. Frank. See you there, Ben.
I am here. Hello.
And Bella, you're here. Do we have? See, did I get everybody? That looks like everybody here.
Did
We
you
have.
call-
Sorry, Alex, what's that?
Ruby?
Got Ruby.
Sorry, just a little bit of a different order than the one I have. Did you call Emil Floresca?
Emil is no longer on the committee.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, great. We have quorum, folks.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for your patience, everyone, that we had that a little bit out of place. We do have other committees. We have the youth, the YAB. And as far as I understand, they are working on their next in-person event, and they are also working on communications to be able to reach more people and more youth. So that's where I know that they are. And let's see. I think that's all I have right now on the updates. And at this time, let's see. Oh, we're almost on time. The agenda says 2:20, and we're 2 minutes early, but it is Daniel's system performance measure report for 2024.
Yeah. Oh,
Thank
Ruby,
you.
got a question before I start?
Yep, Ruby.
Sorry, I jumped in at the last second there. I just wanted to plug a little bit the convening work group. We do have that starting, but there's only currently board members that are actually attending or that are in the committee. So we want to make sure that the membership is well aware that the convening work group is happening, so we can have some participation there from the membership as a whole. And so that's a quick plug for that. I'm not actually on that convening work group, but I do know that that is the case. So I'm hoping to see a little bit more participation there. And but that's the last update. I think the convening is an important thing that we should be really looking at and want to make sure it's in person and make sure that it's accessible for everyone. So please go to the website and fill out the application and select that you want to be a part of the convening work group. Thank you guys. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Ruby. Important
Thanks,
update.
Ruby.
I just want to recognize that we have Ben Matheson, one of our, wears multiple hats on the research and data team. He has been an analyst for the system performance measures. This will be his second year running, helping to put this work together, and just his expertise. He's really dug in, so he's here to support if we have any technical questions. But I'm going to give just a little bit of a table setting here, and then I'll get right into the presentation. First, this is a report that we have to turn in every year as a stipulation for receiving COC funds here at the KCRHA. So we're fulfilling one of our requirements, and me here today sharing this with you is so that you know that we are meeting those requirements as the oversight committee. I think the other thing I want to mention is that right now at HUD, federal reporting schedule is off, where we normally would be getting informed of when we would be turning these in. That messaging and information has been thready and late to come. So we would have ordinarily turned this in a little bit earlier, and I would have presented last month, but we just had HUD open up the portal for us to submit this. That said, I do want to give just a side note here. We are still waiting for HUD to open up the point in time count for 2025. So we're just experiencing delays at the federal level, not surprisingly. I just want to, for those of you who have gotten this presentation in previous iterations, it is a little later than usual, and that's the reason why. And then I think the other point here I want to make is, if you have not looked at the recording, we went pretty in depth on 2 measures, and we talked a lot about just system performance measures in general. And I really encourage you all to look at that recording. And if you don't have that, let me know. I can make sure it gets personally sent to you. What I'm going to show for you today is the System Performance Measure Report. We normally think about, and I'll pull the presentation up here. We normally think about impact and outcomes at a project level, where we look at a shelter and see how many people went into permanent housing. And that's really at that first order. Is a program doing well? Are they performing well? And in 2015, HUD introduced the System Performance Measure Report, which is really looking at how is the system overall working. And we'll go over what the definitions of each measure are here in just a second. But this is not meant to give you the granularity that you would get program by program, but more how are things looking in the entirety of the system. And this is why it's really important for us to try to have as many providers in contributing to the homeless management information system as we can, so that we can have a line of sight on this system level performance. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get into some of the slides. And then if anyone could give me some feedback, letting me know if they can see this, that would be great. So far, so good. So what does the report measure? You'll see that I have seven measures here, and you don't see measure 6 on there. HUD is at this time, they have measure 6 included, but they have not executed communities to do the measurements and to report on that. So it's just not included here. But you can see we have definitions. This is really not just one report. This is a multitude of reports. Even with the 7 measures that we're measuring here, each one of them has different sections on its own. But what we're looking at here for measure 1 is length of time that people are staying in shelters and transitional housing. And what I'd like to do is just tell you a little bit how the format of this presentation is going to go. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you the table, and then I just want to talk and discuss each measure as we go through it, and leave room for that engagement for you all. And here to also answer technical questions about what is exactly are we measuring? How is that formula going if we need to get to that level? I think for this group, 2 things. One, we turned in the report on time, and now I'm going to be showing you the results. So measure 2, I went a little wayward there, but measure 2 is returns. So this is how many people exit to permanent housing, and then within a 2-year period, so segmented out in quarters, how many of them return back after exiting within a 2-year time window. And then our measure 3 is our homeless count. This is really a count of just comparing our point in time counts year after year. And there are some limitations to that I'll talk about. And then measure 4, our income growth. This is only for programs that Kelsey and Catherine and that the COC the COC advisory board has oversight over. But we do look at increases in income for those programs. And then first time homeless. So this is the number of people who are coming in for the very first time. As sad as that may be, it is something that we measure and want to keep an eye on. And then measure 7 is housing placement. So how many people move into who exit to permanent housing and who maintain and retain that permanent housing. And then not usually front and center is our data quality. And this is really important for us to know to what degree can we rely on this data and the level of responses that we get year over year. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the changes there. So a lot of numbers to take in all at once, but at a very high level, this is the results of the report. And you can see on the very right-hand side, the change from year over year. Oh, excuse me, from last year to this year. And you may be asking, Daniel, it says 2024. We always have a year lag because we need a year of measurement. So this report goes from October 1st to September 30th of each year. So that is the time range. So just taking all that in for a second, I'm going to go to the next slide where we're going to get into each one of these measures here. So the length of time homeless, what we saw there is that shelter stays increased by 17 days on average. And um, we measure this by looking at a few different dates within HMIS, primarily two dates. The date that they enroll in a program, and then we have another self-report date where we ask the person, when did you start experiencing homelessness? And so what you see in that first bullet point is that enrollment data, and then the second one is looking at those dates overall. And so we may be up in shelter stays, but total total days experiencing homelessness decreased by 18 days when you take in shelters and transitional housing and safe havens all combined. That transitional housing, those typically can a person can be enrolled for up to 2 years, so it's not surprising to see that number jump up to that 962. One thing, and you know, this is from experience of working with other analysts and people in the field, that shelter stay, and HUD also recommends this, that shelter stay average day is in some ways a signal of how quickly people are moving through shelter. So that efficiency piece. So you want to see that number decrease. People, homelessness should be rare, brief, and non-recurring. And on that brief section, we have increased on average 17 days in shelter. I'm going to pause there. Questions, thoughts? I know if you're in that training and had some notes you took, feel free to engage on this slide, please.
Thank you, Daniel.
Go ahead, Bella. Did you have something?
Yeah, I think that I remember that we were talking about this because, you know, when reports get put out, it's the discrepancies that usually come up to the forefront, and really being able to understand, you know, what people call out first and foremost is one of the more important features, right? To be able to mitigate that this report is showing us something, but really what does that data underneath it mean? And I'm just wondering if, I'm trying to remember our conversation that we had about that change in days, because I remember that, and for some reason it's not coming to the forefront. But that is what stood out. Usually when you're looking at the data, and I'm just wondering if you can remember, Daniel, when we were talking about these different bullet points,
Yeah.
what areas we were referencing about how, you know, to understand the conversations that we could have when people bring up the reports, and the questions that they'll ask us about the discrepancies.
Yeah, yeah, I think the meaning of this is maybe as important as the figure itself. And I think when we see something like 17 more days on average this year from last year, people staying shelter, that I think that means that it's one thing you can think about this, one dimension in which you can think about this is if we're not able to, and our at KCRHA, our contracts and funding have not have held steady. So we haven't really gained or lost much funding here. So we don't attribute it to that. We just see the housing market getting tighter and tighter. But I think more than anything, what this means for those of us who do this kind of work and the oversight is if people are staying 17 days more longer on average in a shelter, we may not be able to reduce that if there's no increased funding. So how do we make the quality of that experience better? Is there anything that we can do knowing that it's going to be longer to resource shelters, knowing that people are staying longer and the off-ramp is not showing itself as quickly as it used to from homelessness and to connections to other interventions? That said, I'll hand it over to Ben because I know, Ben, you've kind of rolled in the dirt with this. Do you have any thoughts as one of the analysts on this report?
Yeah, let's hear the question from Ruby first.
Oh, I was just thinking about if the correlation maybe had to do with connections to services that they might have received at the shelter. And if that's what you mean by total time homeless, does that mean to permanent housing once they get into permanent housing? And so I'm just wondering if those 17 days at the shelters that have been increased were actually what connected them to the services that prevented them from staying homeless longer. I'm not sure if that is what I'm tracking is correct, but yeah, if you guys have any insight on that.
It's a good question, and it sort of brings up this notion of how many different independent questions could possibly explain a difference like this. 17 might feel like a very large number here, but if you put it on a distribution of all these other stays, it starts to look less like a meaningful, strong shift in one direction or the other, and more like an expected aberration you would observe if you saw several of these years over time. So it's important not to read too much into the data before we have the ability to get that granular. And the other thing to think about is the composition of the services landscape. Are there more programs in service that tend to invite people to stay for slightly longer? Is this a function of the current composition of that of the system? So my thought here is I'm not offering anything to explain the changes that you're seeing. I guess I'm offering an invitation to think about whether or not there are like testable things that we can gather together and apply research to try to get to this. It's more of a cautionary statement. Like, let's not try to over explain changes like this, note them, put them in a docket, and then go back and investigate more closely, because that's the level that we haven't done yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Ben. And I understand not to get like mired in the details, but at the same time, when you start producing numbers out there, where people have a tendency to go, and you see these plus minuses, any additional context, usually, even if it's the differences between one population or another, or if it's because of services possibly not, rendering to be able to speak towards, well, this is why we do need this funding, and this is, to do this work so that these people do not have these increases. It usually can help at least smooth, the sailing into the direction of receiving support for things, especially if we see them falling by the wayside. But thank you. And I appreciate that, Ben.
It might, yeah, and in that vein, it might mean more in this case to think of this in terms of shelter stays are still averaging near this number. And if we compare this with the prior years, yeah, are we trending up longer shelter stays? Are we trending down? Because we are going to expect to see a little bit of balancing back and forth. So it's really where that smooth line finds itself over time. So it would be maybe looking back into 2022, and these are things, yeah, that hopefully soon when we get our ground game really tight, we'll be able to apply more of a research lens to.
Yeah, and I do want to just mention this is hot off the press, so we ourselves are just absorbing these figures on our team as well. We just submitted last week actually to HUD on this, so but wanted to get it out as quickly as possible. For time, I'm gonna move to measure 2, returns to homelessness. This rate increased to hang on one second, from 9% to 10%. Sorry, that's worded a little strangely there. I think I misprinted on that slide, but from 9% to 10%. And this is specifically measuring those who exited to permanent destinations while in a homeless project that then later returned and it measures 6-month intervals. And this is overall within the total 2-year window frame. And so this is measure 3.1 and 3.2. This is number of homeless persons. One of the things, and I'll go back to this table because I think it's a little bit easier just to see this figure laid out. Measure 3 there, you see pit counts in 2023 compared to 2024, an increase of 10,404 people. That looks really, really shocking at first. Ben, do you mind explaining this? I think you had a really good way of kind of succinctly just
Yes.
why this is.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what happens in 20, it's this figure is actually more useful to look at in terms of what happened in 2022 to 2024 because a different sort of accounting fueled that number in 2023. What you're looking at here in 2024 is the combination of folks who are sheltered or who on the night of the pit count were in one of emergency shelter, transitional housing, or safe haven programs enrolled, plus the estimated number who were unsheltered at the time, and that's data that we got by running the respondent-driven sampling and the surveys. So it's the combination of sheltered and unsheltered folks. And what you're looking at in the 2023 figure is only part of that. What you're looking at right there is only the sheltered count. So that remainder dropped, and Daniel, I can't remember the exact number I sent, and I'm not remembering where I stored it. But if you actually, I can get that information. There, we haven't actually gained 10,404 people in the course of a year. Not an estimate, not an otherwise. That's just a calculation aberration because in 2023 we did not do an unsheltered count. So what I'm going to do right now in the next couple of minutes is go onto my computer, pull up the total count sheltered and unsheltered people combined in 2022 and tell you what that number was compared to the number in 2024. And the difference there is dramatically less. So I don't want anybody to panic when they're looking at this. It has everything to do with the fact that in 2023, they consider only sheltered folks, not unsheltered also. And in 2024, that number represents the combined total of sheltered and unsheltered.
And I do want to add, thank you, Ben. Thank you for that. I do want to add here that this is HUD being HUD. So they only require the unsheltered count every 2 years. However, they have not updated the system performance measure report to reflect that requirement. So other communities see this same sort of thing if they only do an unsheltered count every 2 years, like we do here at KCRJ. So in some ways, this is just an incompatible logic between two federal reports that HUD has not addressed since they put this together. And then Ben, if you do get that pulled together, feel free to chime in. I'm gonna just open it up. Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts on this? Okay, I'm gonna move on here. This is household income growth. And just for specificity here, income growth is both earned and non-earned income. So for those who are not familiar with these definitions, earned income is going to be things like your job, work, some way in which you're getting an income in the traditional ways. And non-earned income are things like Social Security benefits or Social Security disability benefits, other benefits like that are typically government based. And so what I've seen other communities do when they're trying to affect change in this number is look at those differences and work with agencies to understand the importance of documenting income growth. And usually where we tend to see data quality issues, and we don't really see it much here locally, but where we typically is the annual assessment. So if you're in a program for a year or more, you have a 30-day window left or right of that anniversary date that you enroll to do an updated annual assessment. And so one of the things we do on the data management team is we're looking at that and encouraging programs when we see data quality issues to make sure they do that annual assessment. So from a couple of different ways, trying to improve this year after year. Again, this is holding steady, not much of a growth there, but still some gain. stop there. Opportunity to kind of engage on this figure. Any questions? Oh, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I'll wait until folks have asked questions about this figure, and then just letting you know, I have the estimated actual number of total combined for 2023 whenever you're ready for that.
Oh yeah, that I think we're ready for that.
All right, so in 2024, 16,868 estimated people combined between sheltered and unsheltered. And in 2023, 15,391. So a difference there, an increase of approximately 1,500, just under 1,500, as opposed to an increase of 10,000.
Thank you for that, Ben. And that's measure 3 for those following along. Ben's just doing an estimation correction. So to try to correct for HUD's logic here in this report. Thank you, Ben. So that's income growth. First time homeless. This is an important number. This is the amount of first time entries we see into HMIS from last year to this year's reporting time. And we saw that figure drop by about 1,000, roughly 1,000. And some of this is attributed to program closures and new programs starting. One of the drivers here is our emergency housing voucher program, and we did a lot of cleanup there. And as a result of closing out a lot of those enrollments, one of the major drivers there we saw was to that decrease was closing out those enrollments. And I just want to give a kudos to our community administration team. That's the Bit Focus team, Melissa and Lauren, working really hard to support the data quality improvements. Thoughts?
Yeah, Daniel. So it is possibly attributed to these closures or this transition between closing programs and new programs opening up. Is there anything kind of more behind that we need to know? How are we able to track? Is there any ability to track these new programs that have opened up and whether or not, you know, the significant drop in number have went to new programs if the old ones were closed? How is that gap being addressed?
Yeah, Melissa, I know kind of you probably weren't prepared, but Melissa, could you maybe talk a little bit about this? I know you kind of rolled up your sleeves and were looking at this.
Yeah. So we often have to analyze openings and closures during the LSA reporting period. So we're very familiar with this concept. Typically, I think this past LSA was a fairly it was fairly even. So the beds closed and the beds open were fairly equivalent. And I believe, let me just reread this. First time homeless, we did, because we wanted to be sure, like trying to pinpoint exactly what caused the decrease. And we did find that the biggest culprit was the introduction of the EHV. So during the year 2022, we would see an increase of the first time homeless because there was a lot of folks introduced to the HMIS that were not connected previously. So we see that upkick for that moment in time. And then because of the closing initiative, we do see the decrease kind of occur. And so it's almost like they balance each other out, but we overall didn't see a huge difference in between the beds available versus the beds closed amongst the community. Like it wasn't a red flag that I could see.
Melissa, another way to say that, if I could,
Oh, absolutely, please.
please push back, is where we would normally would have an intervention to match somebody who may be unhoused or displaced, or living unsheltered. That connection, that bed, that placement isn't there anymore. So you wouldn't see, you wouldn't have that available to go into. So it almost sort of winnows or narrows the amount of people that can come in to an entry to have an enrollment. And maybe I made that more confusing. I'm sorry.
No, the closure, yeah, definitely the closure of the EHV resulted in loss of resource. But I couldn't find any other programs that would contribute to that.
So on that, I just want to recognize that there's a comment in the chat that there's a possibility of interpreting this as being the first time they became visibly homeless. You know, my question on top of what you just said about this being, monitoring these regular closures and openings, and that this didn't, not to be hesitant about such a good growth, but at the same time, it's like, if we don't know if they're moving into another program and this isn't, we're not tracking that. I'm wondering, like, how has this come up before? Has HUD questioned this? Is this something that gets kicked back to us? With questioning if we don't have like a more exact pinpoint on like a really large increase or decrease like this. I'm trying to understand the historical, process of producing this report, and if there's any context that you guys can provide in the past, like how much are they honing in on, okay, do we need to have this data? Do we need to show that we believe that this is because of, this happening?
I will say, I'll let Daniel speak to the experience with SPMs. I haven't experienced that. However, in the LSA report, we do receive warning flags, and it's more of like an explanation where they basically say we see a decrease in certain populations. Why? What's going on there? And so then we have to go back to the data, look at all the programs, and figure out, okay, what closures or openings are possibly contributing to this decrease. And sometimes it could be other reasons too, not just program closures and openings, right? So, but that's when HUD will engage with us during that reporting period.
Yeah, I think those are important questions. And again, this is a system level measure. I think just kind of zooming out a little bit, and um, when we try to work through these changes, and we look at the areas that Melissa did, which is, if you had one shelter in your town and it had 100 beds, and it was no longer there, you would see a decrease of 100 people in newly entered beds because they're just not available. And I think what Melissa's attempted to do here is try to see if there's any other explanation before we get to, well, this could just truly be a drop of some kind. And I think that's where, again, this is hot off the press for us. So we have some work to look through and to see, are there any other insights that could contribute to it that we have available?
And just to reaffirm, the way that the EHV program operated in the system was that if vouchers were allotted to specific programs specific agencies, each agency held their own EHV program. So there was multiple EHV programs amongst the system, which is the cause for this so you see this PH closed versus PH open. A lot of those PH closed were EHV voucher programs, but they were just spread out through multiple agencies.
How are we doing on timing, Daniel? Are you good?
Yeah, I think we're good on time. I say why don't we do a hard stop at 3 to give everyone that break that they were thinking about,
I
or that
agree.
they've seen on the agenda. Let's try to get through what we can in that bit of time. I don't want to rush it. Like I said, I think this is important for this group to know. And I just want to say, I think the reason is, you know, in the roles that you all are playing and the spaces that you're in, we really want to be data centered in our discussions and data driven. So as you're out there and you're talking to people and they're saying, we're seeing first time, we're seeing way more, folks experiencing homelessness for the first time. I want you to be able to kind of draw back on these figures and say, for all the limits that they have, we don't have, we have on average 85% participation from all of our homeless service providers in the region. So we can, I think, in some ways say that this is as close as we can get to understanding this. So yeah, I just want to say, just take note of these numbers. You'll see them. I'll send out the presentation. But try to use these figures as you're discussing these problems. So measure 7, we're really actually at the last one here, so we might be able to get through this. This is housing placement.
Daniel?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Ben, did you have a question or want
sorry,
to-
Ben.
Just a clarifying point, just to sort of arm people with some effective vocabulary around it. You consider these problems always in the all other things the same. If you observed such a decrease, you could get very optimistic very, very quick, right? But all other things the same is an impossible bar to meet, especially in a system like ours. So as the level of inventory, as I've already indicated, as the level of inventory changes, as the level of visibility changes, as multitudes of things change, you start to get very skeptical of whether these figures represent, like, is this an absolute shift in the right direction? Is it an absolute shift in the wrong direction? And the reality is that it's very often neither. So if people are frustrated that it's difficult to get them some hard explanation about this, and I'm not talking about the things that we give to HUD for justification upon submission. I'm simply talking about when you have interactions with peers and folks that are maybe looking for harder answers. It's important to just drive home this notion of, yes, if everything else had stayed the same, but that is not the milieu that we live in.
Thank you for that, Ben. Yeah, if all things stayed the same, yes, as we know, our political environments are changing currently. There's a multitude of reasons. That's not what this analysis is. This doesn't get us to the why. This is really just describing what we're seeing if we use the same method year after year. Thank you for that, Ben. I think that's really, really astute point there. Measure 7, housing placement and retention. So pretty good figures here for street outreach placement. These are individuals who were in street outreach programs who then placed into permanent housing. Also, to temper that, we have to think that the environment for street outreach has changed from last year. KCRHA had those contracts mid-year, and then those switched over to the city of Seattle. So there's all kinds of variables that could impact this figure. Access to permanent housing overall improved to 49%. That's a 2% increase from last year for those in permanent housing. Oh, excuse me, 49. Access to permanent housing improved to 49%. Sorry, is at 49%, increased by 2%. And our PSH and other permanent housing programs, the retention decreased to 94%, a decrease of 2%. This is just telling us that it held steady from last year to this year. Usually a margin, 5% margin of error or change is really not statistically significant depending on the type of work you're doing. And for this, I would say this is pretty much holding steady for us, is how I'd interpret that. And then we did see data quality issues in one area, which is in our PSH. So we measure how many individuals give us an answer of don't know, refused, or were unable to collect the data on where they went. And that rose up by 10% for our permanent supportive housing. So people left these programs and we didn't know where they went. And this has been attributed, again, Melissa and Lauren, great work here, at our EHV program, which closed. We had to do some data cleanup and the programs were not able to identify where those individuals went. Melissa, Lauren, anything to add on that data quality piece?
We started at 20%. So it was really great to work with everybody to kind of improve that data. But it did take time. It was good to see at least decrease originally, from 20 to the final spot, which I think it ultimately was like 9% versus 20. So I thought that was really awesome to engage the community in those corrections.
And I mean, we're talking about 8,000 plus permanent supportive housing beds in our community. So big lift for the community admin team. Thank you so much for that work that you do and in partnership with everybody. So this is kind of going back to the final table. Any final thoughts or questions before we end? One thing I do want to mention, and I think maybe when we come back from the break, we can talk about this. Bella, Ruby, those that attended the training, I think there's a thirst for wanting to look at this more regularly and integrate these figures into the work that we're doing as a guiding light. And I think there's a discussion, maybe Bella, you wanted to have a little bit about that, and maybe you could, when we come back from the break, maybe say a few words about that particular piece and how you want to kind of lead this committee with this report and other reports like it.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And we can discuss that when we come back. We're at almost the 3 o'clock time period here, and I guess we can give a little bit extra time. On our agenda coming up, we have a 3:10. What do we normally have these? Like 5 minutes? Do we normally have just 5 minutes or 15 for a break? It's normally 5. Is that correct? Alex?
Usually
sorry.
5.
Yeah, you usually do 5.
Okay. Well, we can give 6 and have everybody come back at 3:05, give you a little bit of extra time here. And yeah, then we can discuss a little bit more about the training that we just did and what was just presented and move on to our next agenda item. So enjoy your time, everyone. We'll see you at 3:05.
Bella, I might be just a few minutes. I'm gonna take a probably just slightly longer break, but feel free to go into discussion about the federal reporting and integrating that more.
Okay, great. I will. Okay. If everybody can just briefly say hi or wave, let us know that you're here. Cautiously, safely. Thank you. And I trust that you had a good break. Yeah, I'm itching to go outside, but we still have lots of really wonderful things to do. But before we get to that, I do want to, and I'm glad that Daniel brought that up. So for those that were not able to attend the training last week, these are not mandatory, but they are recommended. And we had a really good open discussion about this data. And for me being new to the COC and also in the processes that are still kind of emerging with everybody, it was really wonderful to have such an open discussion like that and to have a scheduled time for us, even online and virtually, to really raise a bunch of questions because we're coming at it from different angles. And that provides a lot of insight and feedback for how can we look at these things moving forward. How can we engage the community? Is this serving who and what we're here to do? So when I do send future trainings coming up here, because we definitely left, and I left feeling like this is a priority. We do have trainings that we need to do, but really getting into this information, we have a number of reports starting to go out. In my mind, it's very important to have a good handle. Minimally, yeah, talking points, but it's for us to be able to have these discussions now to get this insight from those who know how that data has been able to get dwindled down, where it might have been directed from. The perspective of, okay, things change all the time. We can't always compare this, apples to apples, year in and year out. So yeah, overall, it was a really, really good training. And the smaller number of us there, I think, made it a lot more interpersonal, which I feel is something that many have brought up within the SPC and the COC. And even if it is, virtual, the ability for us to really make a point of coming together, especially because the SPC has been a strong committee for us. And because this data is really needed, I want to have the win. I want to be able to have HUD recognize that there are some things going right here and that we all have a part of that. And if we can, figure out that that's actually what's taking place, or the opposite, discussing where there are other discrepancies or other decreases that we need to look at trying to address. I encourage you, in the communications that I'm sending out, to try to see if you can schedule one of the other trainings coming up, and always attend the weekly planning meetings. So we can send a link to you. And you can be more involved with what we're trying to get moved forward, our obligations, as well as the new innovations and the things that we would like to do. I have opened up communications and have been trying to open up more communications so that people feel invited to this, even if your schedule doesn't allow. That you feel like you're receiving information enough on a regular basis that you feel like you're a part of things, virtually. So, what else can I say? I guess right now we really are coming, agendas right on schedule, almost 3:10. This week has been incredibly busy for me personally. And that's why you all received an email at 1:00 in the morning this morning about the new possible committee members and applicants. I know in general, the COC is very dedicated to recruitment right now, and I'm trying to do the best job I can for us in the SPC to move that recruitment forward. And we've had a couple of applicants come to us, and I forwarded that information last night or this morning. And hopefully you were able to pull it up in your email. Like I said, at any time, if you don't see something, you don't have it, please feel free to email me. I'm even emailing people during this meeting, and try to stay on top of stuff as best as I can. But at this point, especially with Daniel not, being back to talk about his presentation right now, and the agenda moving into these new applicants, this is a time to hear from them and to ask any questions and see, where they're bringing in their voice to the committee, and to possibly raise a vote to bring them in as a member to the committee. So, Alex, were you able to bring in the first applicant, Mustafa?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Thanks.
Mustafa, you are unmuted.
Yes. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Thank you for being here.
For having me. I don't know if my cam is open or not. Can I? Because I don't see in my screen. Okay, join as panelists. So shall I join as a panelist or stay as attended? So I don't.
Yeah, go ahead and join as a panelist so you can turn your camera on, Mustafa.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here, Mustafa, and thank you for applying to be a part of the Systems Performance Committee. I am so happy to see new people joining, and people that have been a part of the committee looking at coming back. But we would really like to hear from you as to, what appealed to you specifically about the Systems Performance Committee, and anything that you would like to share to everyone about looking to vote and bring you into the committee. So I'll leave it to you.
Thank you so much. So all my life, that is, I advocated for the injustice. So I came as a refugees and immigrants, and as a refugees, I worked with the people has no voices. So as for refugees and immigrants and asylum seeker, and they endure the war trauma, and I saw that is the homelessness and the financial issues. They struggle for that. So as a board member in the King County Health Board member and in King County Behavioral Health Board member, so I want to expand the networks to support these communities and also the BIPOC communities, and give opportunity for everyone to live a healthiest life possible, no matter which they are, where they live, and how much money they make, and expand, serve, and provide the live safety life and health equity to the wide variety of people, and remove obstacle for the health and such the poverty, racism, discrimination, anti-Islamic sentimental that prevail in the American system, and their consequences, including powerlessness, lack of access to the good job, a fair pay, quality of education, and housing, and safe environments beside the healthcare, and deliver voices of the community to the health department and all departments, and especially the housing, and share the opinion and perspective, and fill their needs, and study the barriers, and help to plan and implement these to involve them and solve the problem. So I like to participate and with the input how to solve this problem that's happened since 1970. The homelessness scary issue because it's stability of the life.
Thank you for that, Mustafa. Does anybody have any questions for Mustafa at this time? I know that the skills assessment is a new part of our applicant process. And again, I want to make sure that people did receive that or not. So email me if you did not. I would like to ask you a question to begin, though, if I can, Mustafa.
Sure.
Okay.
The floor is open.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I believe that I read that you held a doctorate in
Yes.
your previous country.
Yes, I'm
And
MD, not doctorate, MD.
oh, MD.
Yes.
I apologize.
Yeah.
And is that and that you are working in psychology currently?
Yes. Yes. I'm a mental health specialist and professional.
That's wonderful.
I
Is that-
I license here. I take this road to be licensed because when I came here as a refugees, they tell you you're nothing, you're nothing, you're nothing. So they discriminate, insult, humiliation. So I don't let that happen to me because my parents taught me as some resilience because I come from the war zone and it's hard to live and rebuild yourself in country, invade your country. Sorry, it's not offensive, but this is the truth. So I start to support my community because they not speak the language. So I'm the world's first Middle East Muslim guy have been licensed in 2015 here, and I speak because 5 languages. So I give the provider in all the language to the client. So I become licensed and I help people. So this is the story about this, how it is it's let me study again because it's really discrimination and humiliations and racism. Oh, you're not white, you're the black people say you're white, the white people say you're not white. So I'm just in the middle. I get these things that happen to me. Sorry to say the truth, but this is what my experiences with that.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. This is about our lived experience, and it seems that you have such an amazing background and the language or any possible language barriers and different cultural contexts. I really appreciate. So thank you for speaking to that a little bit more. Ruby, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to first and foremost thank you for coming today and sharing with us. Vulnerability is one of my favorite things to kind of work our way through. And I think that it's clear to me that you have a really direct way of communicating, and I appreciate that. I think that it's really good to have honesty and perseverance here on this committee or in the fight, I'd like to call it. I'd also like to say, sounds like you would be a great connection to the behavioral health system. That's something the COC has been looking to strengthen. And so I guess my only question is, what brought you to Seattle? Like, was there anything in particular, or where did, because I've lived here my whole life and I just want to ask a little friendly question.
I love that question. I come from nowhere. Like, I was escaped from Iraq because it's too much even I'm gonna say it. I was kidnapped.
Sorry,
and
I wasn't trying to bring that up. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was kidnapped and been tortured, so I've been forced to leave the country. I went to Jordan, Turkey, and then reapply here. And they told me, because you are kidnapped and you're released, we cannot let you enter to the United States because you're a terrorist. I told them, But I work with the DoD, Department of Defense, and Ministry of Defense. I was major also in my country in liaison doctors in the Ministry of Defense and Department of Defense, because and also I have high rank there. So they kidnapped me wherever, and I was released. So then they say we cannot do that because we're going to not negotiate with terrorists, and you have been released. I say, this is my privilege or my. That is, I work with the CPA coalition forces with Paul Bremer at that time. And they said, oh, that's it. So I write a letter to the Condoleezza Rice, and I let the Congress to vote for me to let not every kidnapper is a terrorist. So they vote for the Congress and the White House. I didn't know how the system worked out. So I opened in June 2008, the door to people who's kidnapped to enter this. So I entered to the Seattle. I didn't know where I'd go. I've been forced here. So I started my journey.
Oh, wow. I'm really thankful for you sharing that with us today. I'm sorry to hear the turbulence that you've experienced coming into our country, and it really does resonate with me, just exactly where we're at in this current situation and how we've been there for many years. And so I do thank you for coming to Seattle, and thank you for bringing your expertise to Seattle. It's very much welcome here. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I just want to share also, I am in also advisory committee board member in Washington Department of Health Equity Zone. We initiated a program now since 2022 for this is called Health Equity Zone, to divide Washington in the rural area and urban area to find a health equity zone for all that. So I'm in one advisory committee board member there also in Washington.
Thank you for bringing that up. I don't see any reason to think that that is competitive in any way. It's complementary in many ways. And like Ruby said, really thank you for your powerful story and where you're coming from. I would like to move to vote for Mustafa to be admitted onto the Systems Performance Committee. Does anybody second?
I'll second. Marvin.
Thanks, Marvin. Daniel or Alex, can one of you maybe help with a vote and what type of vote we could do? A roll call vote?
Yeah.
Point of order really quick. Is the co-chair, I can't remember, do co-chairs make the motion, or does it need to be entertained by another member of the committee?
I am open for somebody else to make the motion.
I will make the motion then. Marvin. The motion being.
And I will second.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Marvin.
Okay, are we ready for a vote? I'll just call your name and can say if you approve. Tamara Bauman. Tamara Bauman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you. Sherry Tillman.
Yes.
Thank you, Sherry. Christina Height.
Yep.
Ruby Romero.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote yes.
Thank you. Marvin Futrell.
Yes.
Thanks, Mark. Christina Sawicki. She on? Let me check the Q&A. No. Frank Schott. Ben Vaughan.
Approve.
Thank you. Bella Irons.
Approve.
Thank you. Victoria Ewig Kwan.
Approve.
Thank you. Mustafa is approved with seven approved votes.
Ruby?
Yeah, thanks, Bella. I do want to say I did vote yes on that, but I do feel like it was a little rushed on this end. I just want to let you know that I personally would prefer more time with the application. I understand there's limitations, but because I did get to hear his testimony today, I do think that he is qualified for the position, but I just didn't get a chance to read the application yet. So I just wanted to flag that for future conversations, and I thank you guys for the vote today.
Thank you for that, Ruby. Yeah, I agree. I think further discussion on the processes for making sure that communications are sent out in a timely manner and that the proper information is able to be captured. I agree, and I hear that. Thank you. And thank you, Mustafa, and welcome. I will be in communication very shortly, but we would love to have you stay for the rest of this meeting. And we did have a second applicant, and I have tried to reach out, and I'm not sure if they are in the public room still. If Shauna is available and in the public room, if you can let us know so that the admin team can bring you into the committee room, we would appreciate that. I will give a little bit of time here. And while we're waiting to possibly receive this communication from the second applicant, now that Daniel is here, Daniel, did you have anything else that you wanted to be able to say about the presentation for the report that you just did before we went to break, and or I did talk about when we came back from break about our training meeting and the enthusiasm and encouragement that I have that we look at having another training meeting for the depth and the conversation that we had. Oh, and before we go into that, Mustafa, you had your hand up. Can I
Yeah, I
answer?
just want to share, if you let me know, like my story and my achievement have been published, featured in Tacoma Museum for 100 years. So they took my shoes, that is I immigrant, travel with it, and put it in the glass and called Step Into My Shoes, and called Washington is My Home. So they choose 16 people since 1940 till 2018 that's made Washington his home. So if anyone you want to see that is welcome to go to the Tacoma Museum. There all the stories there, and it's recorded, and you can see all the things. I just want to share that with you guys.
Thank you. That is very rich, and it sounds really amazing.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Because I was subjected to the car bomb. I didn't say that. So I just all my body has, the screw and driver, because I got subject to the car bomb with the, American soldiers and doctors. So it's the first car bomb that happened in Iraq, July 1st, 2003. So I survived. Don't tell me how, but I survived.
We are certainly glad that you're here, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Daniel?
Oh, I just want to say also welcome, Mustafa, to the
you,
System
Daniel.
Performance Committee. I work at KCRHA. I work in partnership with this committee, and I think the next step for us is to get you an orientation, get you the documents you need to kind of read things. During that orientation, I'll give you the work plan and some of the requirements that we have, introduce you to some key members in this meeting today, like our admin team, so you kind of know the landscape of what you're coming into. But before I mention anything more about the system performance or federal reports, I see Tamara raise her hand. Tamara.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we are following the due process. I want to make sure that everybody had the chance to read it, because just thinking about it now, like having only read it just minutes before, like I just give everyone a fair shot, because that wasn't how we practice things before. But I don't know, the vote has been cast. I just and I certainly welcome you, Mustafa. But for future reference, just to reiterate what Ruby said, it would be very helpful, and I think we'll have to really make that clear in the charter, the procedure and the protocol for moving votes forward, because if not everyone has the full packet of information in advance to digest, then it's not really a fair vote for either the applicant or the rest of the committee, knowing that we have to work and collaborate. So just in terms of relational aspect of systems change and equity and fairness, I think we should probably institutionalize a protocol that makes it clear how things should be followed, just so there's no communication, there's no conflict of interest, there's nothing that could potentially deter progress. So just for transparency and clarity, and to remove any possibility of bias.
Thank you, Tamara. Again, I personally agree. Ruby, you also had your hand up.
Yeah, really quick. I just wanted to thank Tamara for bringing that up, and just, you know, definitely that is something we're focusing on in the charter revision work group. I think, right, I think Tamara, you're on, and Marvin, you there as well, so you can keep me in check on that item, definitely. But this is kind of a very important subject, you know, this is the membership recruitment and board recruitment. Like, we need to make sure that we're having these things happen when the charter is revised, and just making sure that we have clear indicators of what it means to be on a board or a committee, and that's really going to come through the charter work group. So I'm just reminding, you know, folks of that, and just hopefully we can really strengthen our membership over the next year.
Thanks, Ruby.
Will
Yeah,
do.
I agree. So Marvin, Tamara, everybody involved with the charter review, I agree with all of these comments, and my apologies for anything that I, you know, might have added to with any discrepancies on my end. I will tell you, I have been in communication trying to make sure that information is accessible, and I see a lot of the timeliness of things as well that need to be addressed, as well as sharing and transparency in the documents. So we need to look at that. And I've given a couple of extra minutes. Oh, before I go into that, Ruby, you still have your hand up?
Totally an accident. Go ahead.
Okay. We have given a couple of extra minutes for the second applicant. Have we received? I don't see any communications on my end
I
about.
saw an email with Shauna asking if she got the link.
Mhm.
If she got the proper link.
Yep.
I'll send this over, Bella. I know we were I don't know if we were all on this thread, but there's that. If maybe on the sideline someone could resend and see. I just bumped that into everyone's inbox.
Yeah, I can.
Also, yeah.
I'm sorry. I can confirm that the proper link and the same process that Mustafa just went through about being placed into the public meeting space and then being brought in by the admin team. That link has been shared with Shauna. So again, if there's a disconnection somewhere, it's definitely happening every once in a while. It's technology, and making sure everybody gets on the same page.
Yeah, I think sometimes we have these kind of burps and they happen and we just have to work through them, unfortunately. Yeah. These little technology burps. I did want to say that for those who are not just tracking this in particular, we have transitioned over to our new application process that the COC Advisory Board has adopted with the Kelsey and the COC team at KCRHA. And I think we're the lucky ones to embark on that process for the very first time. So thanks everyone for your grace on that. And I see this as a pretty solvable thing in terms of time going forward. So, and it says like we all care about that. So I'm sure we will make sure that this gets done quicker, or people get the info quicker. I
I
wanted
would-
to say, oh, go ahead.
I would like to add to that, that if we did not have the second applicant in today, then we have time to hopefully bring that applicant in next month's monthly meeting. And that feels like the timing that we were discussing in this process might be a little bit more adequate for people. So hopefully that's what we're achieving today. Go ahead, Daniel.
I was just gonna say, just like reiterate just before we ended the presentation on the performance measures report out, is that it's really a pleasure of mine to want to invest in this committee and give you training and catch you up to these complex reporting measures. And I think that those that attended just got a taste to scratch the surface of what we're measuring. And I'd like to, I'm gonna work with our co-chairs to look at some training times available so that we can continue to do that. Now, I can do that in the committee meetings here. I'd rather do that kind of investment in your in that knowledge sharing outside of this if possible. I know that might be hard to do, but I think doing that and then showing the report is probably a really good sort of theory practice type approach to it. But I am definitely open to everyone's learning styles, and if they like written form or get together or spoken or discussing, I want to meet everyone where they're at. So just putting that out there. And Bella, I think that was it. After really not much more to say there than afterwards from that training. What I heard was we want to integrate that data literacy into our committee, and then further, and then make sure that we're looking at these reports regularly and these metrics regularly so that you all have a good pulse on the trends that are happening in the homeless service system. And so I'm committed to make that possible. I will say though that we have 110 reports that we're required to produce every year on our team. And we have a lot of other requirements that we have to meet to ensure that our 650 plus programs are getting the attention that they need. So our team is our capacity right now is pretty much at full. So it's just going to take some resource management to figure that out internally. So work with the co-chairs on how to best do that work with you all.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up those points, Daniel. And again, before I get into what I was going to say, Victoria, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say in response to that I know in the past, the System Performance Committee has looked at the quarterly updated system performance dashboard as a group. And that is something that has been taken up again by the KCRHA. So it's already being produced, already being public. So I think at a bare minimum, I think looking at that on a regular basis would be a good move in the right direction of consistently looking at data without expecting a whole lot more from your team, Daniel.
I love that idea. And we just refreshed that. So that's all fresh data. Yeah, actually, I think in our wrap up notes, Bella, I'll send you the link to that so people can look at that and start looking at some of the more recent outcomes on that. Thank you, Victoria. That's a brilliant strategy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Victoria. And to that point, what I was going to offer is, I am not here to do everything in a vacuum. I very much appreciate and would love everybody's, time whenever you have it, ideas. Please keep them coming. for what it is that you would like to have the training for, what it is that you feel is important. You know, this is the Systems Performance Committee, so we have certain requirements that we need to keep to the responsibilities around data. But if there are different ways of working and approaching this data that we've done in the past that are, you know, still happening, that people want to have raised up again, please email me the ideas, talk about them, come to the weekly planning meetings right now, which are on Mondays in the morning, but they don't have to be. They definitely can change. Yeah, communication is a big goal of mine, and I'm trying to start on a positive footing with that. But I continue to invite you all, please communicate with me, with us, so that we make sure that we make these engaging and interesting for you. And at the same time, we're streamlining that work for both Daniel and his team and our time, which is all extremely valuable. And yeah, looking to make sure that we're bringing all of our voices, all of our ideas to the table consistently. So I'm just looking in the chat for anything. I don't see anything in particular. Where are we on time? Okay, so we're a little bit off of the agenda. We have a little bit more than 15 minutes here. And I know everybody is itching to go outside. So let's see if we can catch this up really quick. We have the HUD HMIS data standards open comment period. Again, we did have a first meeting about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I do not have one scheduled again yet, but I am looking for suggestions, especially if you want to come in and participate. I know that there have been vacations and things going on in people's lives, but we do want to move this HUD comment period forward since it is due, I believe, in like a month. Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, we've got I think a couple of strategies going at once, and Bella, if I misspeak, let me know. But what we landed on in our last meeting is I put together an instruction and some background on a one pager that we can send out through our networks, and it will not require us all coalescing around a set of feedback on the data that we collect back to HUD, who is the one who requires and prescribes what we collect. We can give that feedback individually, and I reworked that so that anyone who opens up the email and sees the instructions knows exactly how to give feedback. And I think in a way that allows them everyone at their level to put forward what they think is important with the people that they work with. And then I think we'll continue to collect any responses that are that you may want to have unified together. If we get enough responses to like say, hey, this is kind of categorically true across a bunch of different groups, we'd like to see this change. I do have an opportunity, at least I did a month ago, when HUD still had some of the resources that they did, to give some feedback directly. And so I'm going to see about that, if that channel is still open, but likely not, kind of knowing with all that's going on at the federal level. So I just want to temper expectations there. But was given a light invite, if you will, if we had enough of similar responses to give that directly to our contacts at HUD. Again, things are changing rapidly at that level, so that channel may no longer be all that viable, but we still can do that. And in this alternative strategy, everyone can give that comment on their own.
Okay, so thank you for that, Daniel. Do I understand correctly that you have a communication that can be sent out that makes it pretty easy for anybody to leave those comments so that we do not have to facilitate the coordination of them? if that's true, how does the rest of the committee think that we should move that process forward? This is a communication that I feel like we should at least review before it gets sent out for people. Because this would be coming from us, correct, Daniel? Is that the way that it's oriented right now, that it's coming from the
Very
systems?
general. Actually, I was gonna just bring it up real quick.
Okay.
So we could all just see.
Yeah.
And I have to expand my screen here so I can see my.
I'd like to have in the discussion that we have had today about processes, I would like to bring up right now that while I know that the timing is delicate on something like this, if this is, a responsibility or a channel that is under the purview of the SPC, that we have a little bit of time to look at this communication before it would be released. And we certainly could do that. I could do a wrap-up meeting and put this as an attachment, or Daniel, we could put that together and maybe give a timeline and a deadline for people to have any edits, have any suggestions to the communication. What does everybody think?
And while people are thinking, I'll just give a quick walk through. This
Yeah,
first
thank you.
section is just the announcement saying, hey, this is happening. That there is the link right there. And for those who want to familiarize yourself to where we are right now, I've given the current standards so they can look at that. And then kind of the why this is so important. I put that down below, and sort of aspirationally and giving hope here that although this may not be a very high impact effort this go around, with what we know some of the federal directive goals are, we still see change over time with the voices in our community. So I put that in there saying, this is a reason why this is important, because change has happened in the way that we measure homelessness nationally because of communities like that. And then down here, simple directions. These are the questions that are asked and the type of change that you want to see in the way that we collect data, whether it's verbiage, wording, are we saying things properly and in a way that's affirming and effective, definitional? Is it something about how we collect data? Is it how we ask questions? And then is there anything new that we want to collect? Is there anything that we want to retire? And then in detail, you can talk about those down below. And so HUD will respond to everyone that puts in a comment. And that's how this is formatted. So it's announcement, how to do the survey, or where to go to do the survey, why it's important, and then the instructions below. Oh, please, Bella.
Thank you. I noticed that you have May 1st as a deadline on that, which is literally in 2 weeks from today. So is that a hard deadline, or can that be moved at all?
That is a HUD's deadline. Let me double check. That may have needed to be May 31st. That might be a typo. Let me just check that really quick.
Okay. That would make a big difference if we're going to try and, look at it, or have a little bit of time, like even a week before it would be mass emailed out.
Yeah, let me look at that and get back. So I got a lot of screens open, so I don't know if you all want to see all the messiness here.
Anybody else thoughts on this HUD open comment and this channel of sending this information out and being able to move this forward very quickly?
I'm just excited to share feedback.
That's a valid comment. I understand. I'm sure a lot of people would be. I just don't think that they necessarily know that they can right now. So thank you, Daniel, for putting something together where it can be mass emailed at least and shared far and wide as quickly as possible. My concern is I just want to make sure that our committee feels confident in being able to do that. Melissa, I see that you left a comment in the chat. Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so we had our quarterly agency leads and CE trainers meeting today. And we did lift up this survey to that group, encouraging them to also pass it along to their fellow users.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. And when you say we, are you talking about KCRHA?
KCRHA provided us the content and then we presented on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I do not want to miss an opportunity there, Bella. I know sequencing is a little out of step. I do just want to remind the group that open comment period is open to any person in the public. So it's not as if you know, we're doing anything wrong. But I think in the encouragement of this committee to do that is the force here, saying that you value it, you think it's important, and having that influence others, people, a perception of, you know, because it is important. In this case, our next quarterly leads meeting, these are folks who are doing the HMIS work on the ground. We wouldn't have that for another quarter. So I didn't want to miss an opportunity there for the people that we oversee our contracts with at KCRHA.
Thank you, Daniel and Melissa, for adding that context. I guess another question that I have is, if this was on behalf of us, you know, and or we're affiliated with it, who is this being sent out to? That's important to also understand, especially if it's already started to go out there. You know, where are we going to be sending this to?
These went to in each of the providers in our partner agencies, for those that input and collect data to our HMIS. These are the leads at each one of those providers who work with the HMIS data and are the HMIS point of contact for our 150 plus agencies that we contract with.
And that's who already received it, right? Or is that who this would be emailed to if we're approving it?
I was thinking it would be, you know, each of you are delegates and representatives, I think, to different networks, and primarily the COC membership, I think, is where we were really wanting to send it out through that network.
So is this we would receive the information, or I and or you, Daniel, would be sending it to the committee here, and then we would be sharing this out to other people as well as email lists?
Email list, and I think with you know, working with the COC advisory board co-chairs too, to see avenues there for that full distribution list of the COC membership, and everyone that's on that listserv, which is a much larger group.
Okay. Did you find out when this is due?
Yeah, I'm looking right now. I've got a couple tiny screen. I just have one screen, so I'm kind of doing it and looking to see. The survey itself doesn't have a due date, so and also HUD's kind of been notorious these days to pull some things down as they're reformatting, so or whatever they're doing there with some of these documents. So I'm not one of my links is broken, so I'm looking for that right now.
Okay, I can move on. We only have a couple more minutes here, and I want to make sure that we at least match on time with our agenda so everybody can get out of here by 4. The next agenda item is the PIT committee work group and next steps in that. Is Ruby still here? No. Oh, dang. Okay. So I do not have an update right now about the point in time count committee work group. And
I don't have an update, but I do have a few recommendations for when it gets up and running. I think it's I don't want to overly influence the direction of that, but I have been working with the University of Washington researchers there on some areas where input from a governing board like this and a committee like this would be really effective. And so I've got some areas that I already that group, once it's stood up properly or formally with the right people, we can start working on a planning worksheet that HUD has that will just document and write down everything that's going to be happening and who's coordinating what. And then our Dr. Almquist is willing to come and give a presentation to that group if needed more than once. So there's that education piece. So I think that's kind of update on my end. I'm trying to resource this and make sure there's some structure there when that group comes up.
Okay, thank you. And I do see that Christina has some comments in the Q&A about being included and also posting these things on the website. Marvin, you have your hand up?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I've been driving. I'm pulled over to a rest stop. That sounds good, Daniel. That's great. We just seem to need to figure out what the cadence for that stand up and meeting schedule is going to be. So look forward to continue working with that. Thanks.
Okay, I know we have a couple minutes here, and it seems like we've touched on all the agenda items except for this communication. And it seems like you want a blessing on it for us to say, yes, we need to send this out. Is that what we're trying to achieve here, Daniel?
Yeah, I think this is a kind of a singular voice to the COC membership, and then their networks. I think, yeah, I just wanted some consensus that this works for everybody. I personally don't think there's anything that's in there that's misrepresenting or misstating in that document. Bella, I did send that to you, so when we send out the communication, people can review, and I would say let's not sit too long. I'm still trying to find that date. I'll have that by the time we send the follow-up for this.
Okay.
I may need to work with
Can
Kelsey.
I offer?
Yeah.
Can I offer general consent that our KCRHA staff continues along this path for meeting its deadline? Is that all that's needed? If so, I would like to say I consent.
Thank you for that, Marvin. I would like to make sure that I'm sending this out to each one of you with your at least some time to review and or approve, especially in light of the conversation that we've had today about the timing of processes and receiving appropriate information. For people, I know that the timing is of the deadline here, and that's why I'm trying to see if we can get an actual hard deadline on this, because I do think it's important to communicate to all the people that we're going to share it with that if the deadline has changed from 2 weeks to now to even 3 or 4 weeks to now, it gives us, each one of us individually and collectively, more time to be able to get that out to people and to share that information with them. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm not saying that I don't approve of it. I'm just looking at logistically, I want to make sure that people feel, confident in wanting to share this and that you have the proper information to be able to do so.
Perfect.
So that kind of sounds like we're going to end right on time today at 4, and that there's going to be more information to follow and an email communication from us. So look forward to that. And again, welcome, Mustafa, and all of that entails with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we will get that information to you that Daniel was talking about. And Again, thanks for everybody being here. Look for the communications every week. Please come to the planning meetings and send me your ideas so that we can make sure that the trainings are on target. And hopefully we have enough time now for the second possible member, and we'll put that on the agenda for May and continue to move forward the good work that we're all doing. So enjoy the sunshine, you guys. Is there any final parting comments?
No, I want to say, I just want to ask Bella, if you just have a minute after if folks leave the room, I just want to show you one thing real quick.
Yeah, of course, of course. And everybody else, we'll see you next month, if not sooner. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.